Yeah, welcome to Front Up. I'm Richard Miles, and today we have with us Jesse Salisbury from Steuben, a sculptor in stone, and the founder of the Schoodic
International Sculpture Symposium.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Before we get to the symposium, maybe you
Mhm.
could tell us a little bit about yourself, your background. You're from Steuben originally, right?
That's right. Yep. I'm from Steuben. Was born there and went K through 8 in Steuben Elementary School. Then I had a chance to move around a little bit, and but now I live there.
Did you study art at Colby in
I
college?
studied art at Colby and primarily working with other artists in Japan. It's where I learned how to carve stone.
And from there you returned to Steuben, and
Yeah.
were an area rich in stone.
Right. Plenty of stone.
And so you majored in art at Colby? And
Actually, I majored in East Asian Studies and Chinese with
Oh.
a minor in Chinese and art.
Interesting.
Hmm.
And but were you making sculpture in?
Yeah,
At
I've
college?
always made sculpture every school I've ever been in. I spent a lot of time in the studio, and yeah, I was very interested in Chinese and Japanese art history as well.
So is it safe to assume that the symposium's origins may have been in Japan?
Well, actually, sort of the modern history of symposiums is started in Europe in 1959, but Japan really got involved in the early 60s. So some of the founding symposiums were in Japan and really incorporated into public art. So when I was working as an assistant for other artists there in the 90s, I had a chance to be a technician and a translator for one of the symposiums.
A symposium is a gathering of artists from
Well,
different-
yeah,
different
it's a
countries.
confusing word because a lot of times people think we're holding some kind of a conference when we're actually making these big public artworks. But you know, the sculpture symposium that sculptors refer to started in Austria in 1959 and brought together a group of artists, and they all worked together collaboratively. So you know, because you're working in a group, you have access to maybe more resources than you do working individually. You're also, we involve the public in it so that they can see every aspect of it, the dialogue about public art as well as just the process, the hands-on work of the project.
So local people can attend and kids and
Right,
whatnot and
yep.
watch.
It's
So-
open to the public the whole time, and we've also have a sort of a education outreach aspect to it where we involve the local schools.
So the symposium has been going on in Washington County now for 3 years, or
Well, we first started planning in 2005, and the first symposium was 2007.
I see.
And we've successfully held 3 events, which makes 19 pieces of public art that are out there, and there's a map
In individual communities.
in individual communities. Yep.
And how many artists are participating usually?
That would make 19. We've
Well,
increased the number of assistants too. So this last time we had 6 art students who worked the entire time on the projects as well.
And this took place in...
Well, we started out at the Schoodic Education and Research Center when it had recently closed as a Navy base and was being transformed into something else. We were
This
able
is in
to
Winter Harbor?
In Winter Harbor, we were able to utilize an unused building that was on the campus prior to its renovation, and we operated out of there for 2 symposiums. And this last symposium, the building we had been using was under renovation, so we moved into town in Prospect Harbor in Gouldsboro and rented a house and used the local ball field to do the sculpting in.
So these sculptures are all fairly good size. They're
They're very, very large.
and they're usually placed in some public land.
Yeah,
and
we have a requirement that they're all in public places. Now, that doesn't have to be town-owned property. We've collaborated with land trusts, with nonprofits, libraries, the national park and the state park we've collaborated with to put pieces on their land.
And the
Department of
university.
the university, the Department of Transportation.
Mm-hmm. Oh, good. And so how is it looking for 2012?
Busy.
Right now you're reviewing applications?
We're reviewing applications. We've gone through 174 applications from, I think, 52 different countries so far. There's 3 applicants from Iran, lots of applicants from the country of Georgia, Kazakhstan, all kinds of places you can't imagine. So you get to see what people are making in these countries. A lot of Russians, Polish, of course, all of the Asian countries, India, Japan, China, Taiwan.
Oh, what a wonderful concept to bring all these people together.
Yeah,
and,
it's
and energize each other's.
when they all get here, that's the fun part.
Yeah, yeah. Good. So they submit drawings, and you get to view the idea, the proposal.
Yep, we primarily do the initial judging on quality of produced work.
Mm-hmm.
So not necessarily on the plan, but on what they're capable of. And then most people do submit some kind of a design, but it will have to be transformed or modified when they understand more what the materials that are available are and the place for the final piece.
And
so
then
we try to keep that open until people are matched up with where the piece is going to go.
Do the individual communities approve the design, or are they just happy to have whatever comes?
Well, there certainly is an approval process and a dialogue that happens with the artist. When an artist arrives, the first thing they do is they go to that community, meet with those committees, see the site. One example was Hitoshi Tanaka from Japan. When he arrived in Blue Hill, he stayed overnight at somebody's house. The next day, they took him on a boat ride. The previous night we'd seen the site by the harbor. The next day, he got to tour by sea and come into his site from the water to see it from that angle, and eat at a local restaurant, get together with local people, hear what they liked about his work and why he was chosen, and then we go looking for materials after that. So it tends to come together really quickly, but the core ingredients that are necessary, the involvement of the local people, the artist having the knowledge of the ingredients and what would fit in that area, all come together.
Yes. Well, it's so we're fortunate here in Washington County to have operating quarries that these artists can select stone from.
Yes, it's an incredible
unusual.
asset.
I mean,
yeah. And that's one thing that artists who come from around the world have enjoyed about our symposium. I mean, many places you would go and there would be a line of blocks, often the same shape, the same color, and each artist has to start from there. But here, with the multiple quarries, the colors and the shapes and sizes, there's quite a variety to choose from.
Mm-hmm.
Many of the pieces, as the piece in Machias does, have utilized stones from 5 or 6 different sources for a single piece.
Really? Oh. Now, do some of the artists end up importing some local stone back to?
That hasn't happened yet. No, that hasn't happened yet.
Does it become addictive?
Yeah, stone's heavy, so even bringing the pieces back in a backpack is difficult.
And a lot of the pieces are enormous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we for the past 2 symposiums, we utilized over 100 tons of stone for the projects.
Oh.
So it's a lot, and all of those stones were moved from multiple sources to the work site, and then are assembled, and then later disassembled and installed at their finished location.
Yeah.
So it does represent a lot of work.
What about funding? Is that all from private donation?
Well, funding is one of the most time-consuming parts of the project. Each symposium takes 2 years to plan, implement, and fundraise for. We apply for a lot of grants, and we do sort of a general fundraising campaign and a targeted fundraising campaign specifically for the event. And also each community that hosts a sculpture is responsible for a share of the cost with local fundraising. So they have their own committee that
So
raises money
people
for
take
it.
it on. I know.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's a
Has it gotten
multi-layered
any
process.
easier to raise funds now that you're up and running, or is it still
I don't think it's any easier, but at least we know how hard it is, and we've gotten used to doing the
Prepared,
work.
yeah.
Yeah.
good? And when will it start this year, or open?
July 22nd, it will be open to the public.
And it runs for 2 months?
In Orono. It's a month and a half.
A
It's
month
about
and a
6
half.
weeks.
Mhm. Most of the pieces this year will be set in and around Bangor and Orono.
Right. Yeah, early on there was interest from Bangor and Orono and the university, and we were down there talking with the university, and it was just so far away to bring artists up here, have them visit sites down there, make all of the aspects of the symposium work, that we were reluctant to make sculptures for places there. And the university sort of came up with the idea, well, can we just have a symposium here? And that seemed to make the most sense. And there's also, just incredible opportunity with the art department and the students that are there.
Yes.
There's going to be at least one course and probably 2 courses that will be taught at the same time as the symposium that will be related to the symposium. One about sculpting and one as more multimedia about documenting and that sort of thing.
Have you yourself participated?
Yes, yeah. As I mentioned before, I started out as an assistant at a symposium where I was a translator and a forklift operator and a carver, and
But in the Washington County?
Yep, and then I did a symposium in New Zealand. I did one as invited artist in Japan. I started a symposium in Round Top where we auctioned everything off. It wasn't public artwork. I participated and organized that one, and then I participated in the first Schoodic Symposium while I was organizing it. And since I've been to Egypt and South Korea to participate in symposiums.
Thank you, Jesse, for joining us today, and we look forward to attending the symposium and finding out, just seeing this great work that's going to be done. And
Great, yeah.
It's wonderful going through the towns and seeing the different communities. I think what you're doing is best artistic contribution to Washington County that we've had.
Well, thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you at the symposium.